G'day traders, welcome to wrap up of Monday the 28th of November. So I started today with a bit of an upside bias, but bearing in mind, however, you have seen that we've been in a downtrend for the last 7 or 8 days, but when we opened up today, the market gapped about 20 points to the upside, and then through the pre-market headed up another 20 points. So overall, by the time we started the market, we'd recovered about 3 of the last red days. So all of a sudden the market's had this turnaround, so you've got to kind of go with that perception, realise that the markets are wanting to go up for some reason. But bearing in mind too, because we are in quite a decent downtrend, the sellers could come in. So you can see here, we started off, we just pushed up through a couple of power points and went, by the time we pushed up through these 3, we started to go a little bit sideways. Quite a slow morning. We're not quite used to seeing markets this slow. So not a lot of action, but the first opportunities started to come a little bit before lunch. So this might not look like it, but we're almost approaching lunch here, and that's only 1, 2, 3, 4 power points a hit. So quite a lot of evidence there that it is quite a quiet day. Sorry. Round here we started to head up, so a bit of a 5-minute signal started forming here. Didn't technically come up, but the predictor started to cross the upside. Some of the other markets were starting to head up as well. So around this area, there's potential for the market to keep going up. But just because we had such quite sideways movement, there wasn't a lot of power coming to the upside. It was one that potentially could have had a bit of a go at, but in the end, you can see the markets hasn't pushed through, and this kind of thing, especially with looking at the dailies, you've got the 5-minute buys coming in. You would expect it really to push up a bit higher and look to make higher highs, which in the end it didn't. So then we're approaching lunchtime, and basically pushing through lunch here. Predictive now crossing back down to the downside. So not a lot you can do at this kind of stage, just waiting for the market to either push down and break its lows. So I guess trying to look down and break through this area around here, which it's started to do, or start to head back up round to its highs. So at this stage here, the predictive started to cross back to the upside. But by now the market action is definitely starting to look more on the downside, and also the moving average is pointing to the downside as well. So at this stage here, looking for a little bit more of a short opportunities after the upside didn't go on with it. So that's a bit of an indicator that the buyers just didn't want to carry on and head up like they did in the pre-market. So maybe the sellers were going to come back and take control like they had done the last week. So opportunity, probably one of the better opportunity was around here. So there was 2 points here. So an actual 5-minute signal came down here, which by this stage, when it comes up here, this is a classic example of the right area, just not a good entry. So by the time the signal came up here, it already pushed through the power point and the market was already extended. And also you're testing this this resistance and support area here, so not an ideal entry. However, 5 minutes earlier, the entry came up here, nice power fade entry, an example of where you could take a bit of a 5-minute Viper and take it on early, because basically if you wait, you're going to miss that, and it's going to push through and it's going to be too late and kind of miss the bus. So bit of a 5-minute Viper to the sell side just there. So in the end, the market's then turned back around again. So market not really strong either direction. It's pretty much up until this point. The market's just kept within quite a tight range. Hasn't got a real desire to head in any particular direction. Started to sell off towards the afternoon. It was a bit of a pullback here. The predictive started to cross to the downside. Now across to the downside, a pullback area is something that you'd be looking for, because you can see that the market action up to here now is definitely back on the sell side. You've got the predictives, moving averages, everything indicating sellers, so it's best to go with the immediate trend, and that's definitely on the downside. So this particular area here, there's a bit of a bullet set up, so a pullback, or maybe even the PowerPoint pullback, which was up a bit higher, which it never quite got to, and then a bit of pressure released finally to the downside, had a bit of a trend, and it's ended up getting down to the yellow there and bouncing right off that yellow. So that's maybe an indication here of if we start to see these slower markets, see what happens tonight, Tuesday night, see if it continues to slow up. There should be a little bit more action tonight, but if we continue to see these slower markets, start to see these yellow and green power points work a little bit more. Lately we've seen the market pushing through them and they're not holding the market up at all just because there's too much volume within the market, and they're just pushing through these power points. But power point trades, and especially yellow and greens, these type of areas will work really well in these tighter ranging markets. Okay, from there now we've hit just about got 330 here. So the market's bouncing around a bit sideways, so not really looking for anything at this stage. It's quite choppy there, unsure what it really wants to do, and then finish off it headed back up, which was a little bit out of the blue. Just bring over the 5-minute chart. So here's the open here. So we pushed up originally in the beginning of the day, had a pullback. So this is the area here where I thought there was a bit of value, but in the end the buyers just didn't really want to go on with it, and this is potentially an area where they could have pushed higher, which they didn't. Then switched over back to the downside. From here everything started to switch back to the sell side, pullback. And this is that area I talked about where by the time the 5-minute signal came, which it ended up failing, it was down here, it's quite extended. Ideally this is one that you could take 5 minutes earlier, when you got up here, when you got a nice power fade entry, market's not overextended, you're still going with the overall trend, just catching a pullback and looking for it to push down lower. And a couple of points was definitely available in this particular option, just a little bit higher. And then you can see again it's pulled back and pushed down lower again before pushing up a little bit in the afternoon. Alright, that's a wrap up.